Most students entered high school dreaming about popularity, friendship, and unforgettable memories. Katsuzawa Kousuke wasn't one of them. While his classmates spent their days chatting, laughing, and building social circles, Kousuke preferred something entirely different. He found comfort in blueprints, sketches, and craftsmanship. Creating something with his own hands felt far more meaningful than trying to impress people. On an ordinary afternoon, while the classroom buzzed with noise and conversation, Kousuke sat alone at his desk, concentrating on an architectural design. Every line was carefully measured, every detail had purpose. His pencil moved steadily across the page as he worked on a structure inspired by traditional Japanese craftsmanship, accented with bold orange tones. Around him, several boys were entertaining themselves by tossing a mop cloth back and forth. Nobody paid much attention to Kousuke. That wasn't unusual. Most days, he was practically invisible. Then suddenly, the mop cloth flew off course. Before anyone could react, it smacked directly into the back of Kousuke's head. The classroom fell silent for a moment. The student responsible immediately froze. "Sorry, that was an accident." The boy genuinely looked remorseful. Kousuke simply rubbed the back of his head and accepted the apology. He was used to this kind of thing. Not being bullied. Not being hated. Just, overlooked, the boy stepped closer and noticed the drawing on Kousuke's desk. His eyes widened. "Whoa, is this from an anime?" Kousuke answered instantly. No, the reply was firm enough to make the other student pause. Unfortunately, that only made him more suspicious. Because in his mind, anyone who drew something that detailed had to be hiding some kind of anime obsession. Meanwhile, on the other side of the classroom, a completely different conversation was taking place. Several girls had gathered around a magazine. One of them pointed excitedly at a page. "Wait, isn't this Saika?" The group immediately leaned closer. Sure enough, there she was. Misuguchi Saika. One of the most popular girls in school. A model. A trendsetter. The type of person who naturally attracted attention wherever she went. One of the girls couldn't hide her excitement. "That's amazing. You were just a regular reader before, and now you're appearing in the magazine yourself." Saika laughed awkwardly. It wasn't anything special, it was just a joint photo shoot. Despite her growing popularity, she didn't seem interested in showing off. That only made people like her more. Back near Kousuke's desk, the boy who had thrown the mop cloth became distracted by the conversation surrounding Saika. His attention completely shifted away. Kousuke, look, no response. The boy was already staring towards Saika's group. Moments later, he walked over and attempted to join their conversation. Unfortunately for him, Saika's friends immediately made it clear that his presence wasn't welcome. The rejection was subtle, but unmistakable. Watching from a distance, Kousuke quietly stood up. Then he left the classroom. The hallway felt calmer. The restroom felt even quieter. As cold water splashed against his face, a familiar thought surfaced. Maybe he had missed his chance. Several months had already passed since entering high school. Friend groups had formed. Social circles were established. People already knew where they belonged. And Kousuke? He still felt like an outsider looking through a window. Sometimes he wondered how everyone else made it look so easy. How did people walk up to strangers and start conversations? How did friendships begin? How did people find others who shared the same interests? To Kousuke, those questions felt more difficult than any blueprint he had ever drawn. The worst part wasn't being alone. It was feeling trapped between wanting friends and being terrified of embarrassing himself. If he approached the wrong group, would they think he was weird? Would they laugh? Would they gossip about him afterward? The possibilities played endlessly inside his head. As a result, he usually stayed silent. Safe, invisible, yet another part of him couldn't help wondering what would happen if he took the first step. Maybe everything would change. Maybe nothing would. Unfortunately, he lacked the courage to find out. After leaving the restroom, Kousuke expected another ordinary afternoon. Instead, fate decided to surprise him. A girl suddenly approached him. "You're Katsuzawa, right?" He stopped walking. The girl smiled. "My name is Yakakura." Unlike most students, she didn't seem uncomfortable talking to him. In fact, she appeared genuinely interested. The unexpected interaction immediately caught Kousuke off guard. For someone who spent most of his days unnoticed, even a simple conversation felt unusual. Before he could ask why she wanted to talk to him, Yakakura mentioned something important. She wanted to speak with him after school. Kousuke blinked. After school? Why? The answer arrived sooner than expected. Back inside the classroom, Yakakura showed him a damaged shelf belonging to her club. One of the wooden boards had cracked. Most students would have ignored it. Kousuke didn't. He examined the damage, measured the weak points, then got to work. His hands moved with remarkable speed. Within minutes, the shelf was repaired. Yakakura stared in amazement. That was fast. Kousuke shrugged. It was only a crack. To him, the repair wasn't impressive. To everyone else, it looked like magic. Yakakura watched closely as he finished. His movements were smooth, confident, precise, the kind of skill that only came from years of experience. Eventually, she learned the reason. Kousuke's family owned a workshop. Ever since he was young, he had spent countless hours helping with repairs and construction projects. For him, fixing things wasn't a talent. It was simply normal. Still, Yakakura couldn't hide her admiration. During lunch, she had seen his notebooks. Not only could he repair objects, he could design them too. His sketches revealed genuine creativity. When she pointed this out, Kousuke immediately downplayed it. "I'm still learning." But Yakakura disagreed. The path of a designer always started somewhere, and judging by his work, Kousuke had already taken the first steps. For the first time that day, he felt something unusual. Someone had recognized his efforts. Not his grades, not his appearance, not his social status. His passion. That feeling stayed with him long after the conversation ended. And although neither of them realized it yet, this small interaction was only the beginning, because before the day was over, Kousuke's life would collide with the most popular girl in school. Quite literally. And that accident would set off a chain of events neither of them could have imagined. After school, Kousuke walked home alone as usual. The afternoon sky stretched endlessly overhead, painted in shades of blue and gold. The streets were quiet, and for once, his thoughts drifted somewhere pleasant. Earlier that day, he had spoken with two classmates. For most students, that wouldn't mean much. For Kousuke, it felt like progress. Real progress. Friendships weren't built overnight. Even famous castles took time to construct. Relationships were no different. As long as he kept moving forward little by little, maybe things would eventually work out. That was what he told himself. Looking up, he noticed a cloud formation that reminded him of the crest of the Toyotomi clan. The sight immediately triggered his imagination. Toyotomi Hideyoshi had been a man capable of attracting countless followers. A natural leader, someone who could walk into a room and effortlessly draw people toward him. Kousuke wondered what that kind of charisma felt like. What would it be like to inspire others so naturally? The answer never came. Because at that exact moment, a bicycle came speeding toward him. Fast. Very fast. Too fast. The rider had her eyes squeezed shut. She didn't see where she was going, and before either of them could react, crash. The impact should have sent both of them flying. Instead, Kousuke instinctively stepped forward and stopped the bicycle with his own body. Pain shot through his stomach. The force nearly knocked the air from his lungs, but the rider remained unharmed. A moment later, the girl slowly opened her eyes. She blinked. Confused, then shocked. Standing before her was Kousuke. The bicycle was trapped against him, and somehow he had prevented her from falling. The girl immediately jumped off. "Are you okay?" Kousuke was the one who had taken the impact, yet somehow he was asking if she was hurt. The girl stared at him, then smiled with visible relief. It was none other than Misuguchi Saika, the school's most popular girl. The same girl everyone seemed to know. The same girl whose magazine appearance had become the center of conversation earlier that day. And now she was standing directly in front of him, thanking him. Kousuke's brain practically stopped working. Of all people, why did it have to be her? Saika brushed dust from her uniform before looking at him again. "Thank you. You really saved me." Then she surprised him even further. "I know who you are." Kousuke froze. She knew him? How? His mind immediately scrambled for answers. At the same time, he desperately searched his memory for her name. Unfortunately, panic had already taken over. When he finally spoke, he accidentally called her by the wrong name. Deguchi, right? Silence, a very uncomfortable silence. Saika stared at him, then burst out laughing. "That's not me." Kousuke felt his soul leave his body. The most popular girl in school, a professional model, and he had just confidently called her by her friend's name. If embarrassment could kill, he would have died instantly. "My name is Misuguchi Saika." The moment she corrected him, Kousuke felt an overwhelming urge to disappear. His face turned red. His thoughts spiraled completely out of control. He apologized repeatedly before turning around and practically fleeing the scene. Saika watched him go, completely baffled. She had expected many reactions. That wasn't one of them. For several seconds, she simply stood there. Then she started laughing. Not because she was offended, not because she was mocking him, because his reaction was genuinely funny. It was obvious he hadn't made the mistake on purpose. The more she thought about it, the more amusing it became. Meanwhile, Kousuke continued walking away while internally reliving the most embarrassing moment of his life. Why wasn't she angry? Why had she laughed? What was happening? Before he could figure it out, Saika called after him. "Wait." Kousuke reluctantly stopped. Saika caught up and crossed her arms. I introduced myself properly. There was an obvious implication. Now it was his turn. Feeling trapped by basic social etiquette, Kousuke introduced himself. "Katsuzawa Kousuke." Saika repeated the name quietly, almost as if she were testing how it sounded. Something about her expression made Kousuke nervous. Was she judging him? Did she think his name was weird? Was she secretly laughing? His imagination immediately generated dozens of worst-case scenarios. In reality, Saika was simply trying to remember it correctly. But Kousuke couldn't know that. The conversation should have ended there. Instead, fate decided to interfere once again. A metallic clanking sound echoed from the bicycle. The chain slipped loose. The rear wheel locked instantly. Saika looked down. "Oh no," Kousuke sighed. The chain had completely come off. Without thinking, he crouched beside the bicycle. His hands moved automatically. Years of workshop experience made the repair feel effortless. Saika watched in fascination. The chain slid back into place within moments. His fingers moved confidently, efficiently, like someone performing a routine task. "You can fix bicycles too?" Kousuke shrugged. It wasn't difficult. To Saika, that answer was ridiculous. Most people couldn't repair a bicycle chain in the middle of the street. To him, it was apparently nothing special. The more she observed him, the stranger he became. Quiet, awkward, socially nervous, yet incredibly capable. He wasn't like the boys who constantly tried to impress her. In fact, he seemed desperate not to attract attention at all. That alone made him interesting. Then Saika suddenly pulled out her phone. Kousuke immediately sensed danger. "What are you doing?" "I'm recording." "Why?" "Because this is cool." Kousuke nearly choked. Within seconds, Saika was filming him, showing off his repair skills, smiling the entire time. For someone who avoided attention whenever possible, this was a nightmare scenario. Please don't post that. Saika tilted her head. What if I don't show your face? That question hit surprisingly hard. Kousuke hesitated. Her smile was bright, friendly, dangerously persuasive. Eventually, his resistance collapsed. Fine, victory. Saika immediately uploaded the video. Kousuke instantly regretted everything. Fortunately, she reassured him, only my friends will see it. Those words helped a little. Not much, but a little. After finishing the repair, Kousuke stood up and dusted off his hands. The chain was working again. At least temporarily. You should replace it soon. Saika nodded. I will. With that, Kousuke prepared to leave. His social battery was beyond empty. He needed to go home. Immediately, unfortunately, when he started walking away, he noticed something strange. Footsteps. Behind him. He glanced over his shoulder. Saika was following him, pushing her bicycle. His heart nearly stopped. Why was she still here? Hadn't the conversation already ended? Every alarm bell in his mind began ringing at once. Was she trying to find out where he lived? Was this normal? Did popular girls usually do this? The answer was obviously no, which only made the situation feel stranger. Finally, Saika spoke. Do you live nearby? The question nearly sent Kousuke into another spiral. Why did she want to know? What was the correct answer? Was there a correct answer? After several seconds of internal panic, he managed a response. It's within walking distance. Saika nodded. You're lucky. I wish I lived that close. For a while, they continued walking together. Then suddenly, Saika laughed. Relax. Kousuke blinked. What? I'm not actually following you. The confession caught him completely off guard. She pointed toward another street. My route is over there. A long pause followed. Then Kousuke realized something. She had been teasing him. The realization somehow felt both reassuring and embarrassing. Saika grinned. See you tomorrow. Before he could respond, she started heading in the opposite direction. Relief flooded through him. Finally, the encounter was over. Or so he thought. A few seconds later, footsteps rapidly approached from behind. Again, Kousuke turned around. Saika was running toward him, this time without the bicycle. She stopped in front of him, slightly out of breath. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she smiled. A genuine smile, the kind that reached her eyes. I forgot something. What? I never thanked you properly. The words hit harder than Kousuke expected. Most people would have left already. Most people wouldn't have come back. But Saika had returned solely to express her gratitude. Not because she had to, because she wanted to. Then she raised her hand. Kousuke stared. Confused, several awkward seconds passed. Finally, he understood. A high five. Slowly, he lifted his hand. Smack, the sound echoed lightly between them. Saika's smile widened. Thanks, Kousuke. This time she truly left. And for the first time since meeting her, Kousuke smiled. As he watched her disappear down the road, a realization quietly settled into his mind. Maybe judging people from a distance wasn't fair. Maybe assumptions were wrong. Maybe the person everyone saw as an untouchable popular girl was actually just a genuinely kind person. And without realizing it, both of them carried thoughts of the other all the way home. Neither knew it yet. But this chance encounter was about to turn their entire school life upside down.